Hey everybody, welcome back for the second part of our interview series with Ian Warner Sr., my strength and conditioning coach. Part one was about parenting and how to be, how to just help your kid and support your kid the best through whatever sport they might go through. So part two, it's about more of his coaching experiences. So he's coached kids through elementary, high school, all the way into the professional ranks, going through drafts, coaching Olympians, helping them come back from injuries and pregnancies. So I think it'd be cool for Ian to share his side of things. For all you people who might want to be strength and conditioning coaches, who might want to get into this side of the business, hopefully these kind of stories will help you guys, give you guys some ideas on how to approach it. So maybe you can just kind of share with them, kind of your experiences as an S&C coach, how you became an S&C coach and all that stuff.
Wow. Well, I've been coaching more than 20 years, and whether it's a form of football or other sports, soccer, it was a natural extension of what I do. I when there was a Gold's Gym in Toronto that opened up when I was 18, so I was into the bodybuilding side of things. I was lifting weights from 11, so it was just a natural extension that you'd end up coaching people, especially a sport. And I was lucky when the Sports Institute of Ontario, so Canadian CSIO, they were looking for some S&C help, and I was stationed out of York University with Chris Dawson, so we would take care of the S&C for a better part of 4 years, and in between that, about 12 went to a couple of the world championships, and 6 went to the Olympics from that center. So that was probably the biggest growth in terms of learning more about metrics and applying really the science side of things to either biomechanics or just weights, progressions, and using force plates and being able to use tools that will show you whether the individual is progressing or not.
Right. What year was this?
So I think 11 to 13.
Gotcha.
Yeah, 11 to 13. 2000.
That was when you guys really started to dive into the metrics.
Yeah.
Use numbers, quantify all the
because they had all the equipment, right? And
right.
After equipment, you can't, if you're solo, which I am, you don't have that kind of equipment, and technology has come to the point where like we've used push bands where it at least gives you velocity to the bar, so now you can see whether the individual is progressing, and coach them to a point where you don't hurt them, because we used to do 1 rep max tests and you keep adding weight. It's like sometimes their weight's really heavy and you're kind of scared or worried.
You're holding your breath there.
Yeah, because okay, you're all right, but there's a lot of things I learned from those guys, and Chris Chapman was another one that, okay, this is how we got to look at things, and then using more research and seeing the studies and saying, okay, how can I take that piece out and apply it to what I do? Because you can get stale, right? Now, I've been around for a long while. You can see the books I got in here and stuff like that. You got to reread and re-research. But there's times, like every year, I'll go through my inventory and look at, okay, what do I think worked? What didn't work? And I get to throw it out. What can I try to see if I get the response I want? So you always got to keep on top of what's going on, and try not to. I don't know, maybe being old, I don't know if it's wisdom, what, I don't know. I've ended up going almost back to the basics, because the basics always work. You can get into, there's some really great exercises that you see, and once you find out the context of what the person's trying to do, then okay, that makes sense. And then later on, usually the research backs up why that particular thing worked. But in the meantime, you still gotta help the individual get to their goals. So the basics are great, and I think the foundation's got to be strength in whatever you do. The stronger you are, the least likely opportunity, and you can't quantify and say for sure that they won't be injured, but you decrease the amount of injuries they may get. But teaching them how to absorb force where there's braking forces, and you know, we always got to, if we shoot one way, there's something on the other side braking and stopping that limb from moving. So you've got to look at the body as a whole. I think if more time is spent early on with kids, and everybody's afraid of, there's two schools of stuff. Oh, you can't lift weights, you know, you're gonna get muscle bound and all that. And then there's guys that lift. There's a happy medium in the sense that sometimes there is too big, right? Because if you're big and you can't move the way you need to, that's a problem.
Right.
But some sports, you need to be big just to absorb forces that you're going to take. Otherwise, you're going to get hurt.
Right. I play football, I'm going to get hurt. I'm going to get snapped in half.
Yeah. Like, you know, that's the thing. But you know, you're a perfect example, but you're getting stronger and you haven't added any weight, which is perfect, right? So now you can handle the forces that you're, you know, using the torque and swinging that club, right? So I'm of the, okay, what are you trying to do? What's your position? What's your sport? What is the worst thing that can happen to you? And then look at the individual and say, okay, then we need to, you know, run through some tests, movement skills, whatever, but okay, then we need to take care of this. And if you start early doing those things, you know, whether it's body weight or even a med ball, that's still resistance. Then you will have a better opportunity to balance the individual out as they get older. Because when they get older and they're in a sport and they, you know, get into the training side later, there may already be some imbalances, right? Like a pitcher might have, you know, huge arm this side and the other side. But if you try and correct those things later on, you'll probably mess up their game.
Right.
So that is now just maintenance and making sure we keep the tissue quality and everything else and their tendons and everything else together that they can perform and minimize, you know, injury. But usually after you quit, when you're done, then you go back to trying to balance out your body and correct those things, because it's not, you know, you're not depending, or somebody's not depending on you to win a championship, you know, win a pennant, win a Stanley Cup or whatever. So it's a case of, you know, look at the individual and taking what they say. Because one thing I learned through a lot of the sports, there's, whether it's coaches or S&C guys or, no, do it my way, right? You've got to also look at the individual and what they're capable of, and then say, all right, let's work within the confines of, you know, what you're presenting to me, so I can say, okay, let's work on this, let's work on that, right? Because you obviously want to see, if you can't see a benefit, whether it's quantifying it or, you know, you'll take snapshots of club's head speed and all that, you'll see things, and if you don't see anything getting better, you know, with the swing looking prettier, then it's not really helping in the sense.
Right.
So you can be real pretty, but you generate no force, right? Or you can be real pretty and generate force. Is like, wow, that's what I want, right?
Right. Regardless of any sport.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when do you, like, you know, I always hear people say, no, kids shouldn't lift or do exercises or whatever, maybe just body weight stuff. Like, what is your stance on, like, how does one go about deciding whether or not their kid should start lifting to get stronger for their respective sports?
Yeah, that's it depends, because literally, because the potential to get hurt lifting early, adding too much, that kind of thing is you know, something to be careful about. You got to look at the attention span of a child, right? Like when well, you know, Shaq, he started playing at 7. He started playing at 7. Some kids can't play a game that early because the attention span's not there. They can potentially get hurt in a sport like football. So if the child can listen to instructions and carry them out, right, then you can start doing things with them. So obviously in that progression, you do body weight, just body weight squats and all that. Right. Teach them how to train, how to move properly, right? And comes a point where you know, you've got to make a decision whether, okay, do we need to add some form of something? Because if you do a push-up, that's resistance training. Right. If you do squats, it is. Right. But then it's going to be so easy. You can do like 100 of them. It's like, okay, it's not doing anything for them. So I think it's really age dependent and the faculty of the individual, whether they can pay attention and carry out the instructions and do it. So I have a tendency, because like I said, I started lifting at 11, and the tendency for me is you do some form of movements that work on your hinge, your squat pattern, and your press and your pull. And you know, you can do pull-ups, and that's hard in itself.
For sure.
But you'd be surprised kids can do pull-ups, and you know, they keep doing pull-ups, and as they get heavier, they're going to get stronger just doing pull-ups. And the push-ups, it's something again that, you know, will start to develop, you know, that pressing movement.
Right.
But you know, you got to really pay attention to their form and what they're doing, and if they're doing things correctly, then you know, it will imprint that pattern into their system, and you know, they'll know when they're out of spec, so to speak, and they can be able to correct themselves.
Right. When would you start loading kid up with actual weights?
Yeah, again, it depends. You know what? I would probably say, I know down in the States they lift pretty early.
How early?
Well, I used to say when you know these kids are growing up and stuff, I used to say like grade 9, you want to start, because depending on the sport, right, that you know you get to start lifting and learn what's going on and how to you know perform the basic movements and stuff. Because when you go down there, they're expecting that they're going to throw you right into the chamber, and you've got to perform these lifts that you've never done in your life, right? So football, they'd probably start grade 8 in middle school, and it's probably earlier, right? But then they know by the time they get to high school, they're lifting like fiends, and they know how to lift, they know all the lifts, and then when they get into college, it's not a culture shock. From here, there's not so much time spent on that. And, you know, especially a ballistic sport, hockey and football and rugby and stuff like that, that's where you could tend to be. Over here, the players are lighter in a sense, and they go down there, it's like, oh my gosh, they're just huge, but they've been lifting a while. So I would say a safe thing is grade 9, but, you know, again, depending on the sport, but grade 8, 7, and 8, you should probably be doing some form of, you know, exercises in addition to your training for the sport. Right now, a lot of sports these days, they're training a number of days, and they don't have time to do anything else. And then I think that's what's happening with all the injuries, whether it's, you know, the knee injuries or anything else, because really all you're doing is practicing, and the body's not necessarily prepared, right, for the volume of activity. So I know in Britain it might have changed, but they will play once a week, and most of the time is on fundamentals, getting the body correct, you know, and all the skill sets. Whereas they might play tourneys every weekend and play games, and there's no time to address any issues the individual has. So so you get more volume of play, less time to recuperate and try to get your body, you know, in shape for the sport. So I mean, that's just my opinion, but you know, I see sometimes like if a kid goes down to the States, that's a different animal. So depending where you're going and what you're doing, you know, you have to look at that and say, okay. And again, the kids' attitude, because most times you discover a weight room, not so much middle schools here, but when you go to grade 9, there's a weight room. So all the guys go in there and it's like, I want to get big and get buff, right? So that's the time, if you could coach them beforehand and teach them how to do things, I think it would save a lot of, you know, hurt in the long run, in a sense, you know.
That's cool. Yeah. What have you found? So like going back to Shaq, you've trained Shaq for quite a while now. So how old was he when you guys first hooked up?
Well, 7. I coached him at age 7, and coached him football for a couple of years. And he was coached, I guess, in other levels. And then grade 9, we started when actually Advantage opened up. Grade 9, we started, and it's funny, at that point there was probably 25 guys came out, and we're like, listen, just stick here for the 4 years, right? And by the time, you know, you put on 10 pounds a year, that's 40 pounds. And usually somebody who's new, right, might gain 20 to 30 pounds in the first year, and then another 10 pounds after that. So by the time you leave, right, you might have 50 pounds on you that you're used to, you can run with and play with, and then you go to college, right? If you go to the States, they'll look at you like, okay, you need another 20 pounds, right? But at least you're closer to your objective, right?
Right.
So yeah, no, it was one of those, okay, every year, just keep training, keep running, and he ran track too at times, so keep running, keep training, and, you know, and it paid off, right?
Right, he went to, where did you go for school?
He went to UNLV for Division I high school, or Division I football.
Right, and then went
And
CFL after.
yeah, yeah.
That's cool. So how do you keep someone like that, like focused and on track? I mean, like with high school, it comes a lot of distractions. With so much many things going on, going puberty. Like how do you as a coach deal with all that and help your kid or your client, stay focused. Obviously there's some balance involved. I'm okay with you hanging out with your friends, but like how do you like just like keep them on track with so many potential distractions,
Yeah.
right?
Well, funny thing is, I kind of like underdogs because both my kids competed with individuals that everybody said, oh yeah, no, this guy's gonna beat him, this guy's gonna beat that, right? And I said, don't worry about it, just don't worry about it. And Shaq was the same sort of thing. He was undersized. He was really small for his age, and it's like, everybody's like, yeah, you're always gonna be undersized. You can't play this, you can't do that. And I think that's depending on who it is, because not everybody can take, oh, you can't do it. Like some people's like they're devastated.
Right. They take it so too hard that they
it's
won't
over.
do it. I
But
see.
some people use it as fuel. Like
Right.
Ian uses it as fuel. He had a list of people
Really, yeah. He wrote it
on
all
his
down.
wall.
I love it.
On his wall, and he would cross off.
Really, eh?
as, oh, I'm telling you.
I love it.
And then all the colleges that didn't return, like he was being recruited, and all of a sudden they dropped off one by one. He put all those colleges on there, and he said,
love it.
okay, when I meet you, I'm gonna knock out your players and your runners. And it's like,
I love it. And
yeah.
he did it.
Oh yeah, he's a fiend like that.
I love that. I love that so much.
So Shaq's kind of the same way, right? And it's the case of, I said, so I could speak to his dad and say, like, I understand, but you just got to keep his head on and make sure, the marks keep him basically, having that goal in the back of his mind saying, okay, this is what I want to do. And I think that's part of it. If you don't have a purpose or a goal, it's going to be hard to get to someplace. Because even I find myself in this training is just getting back. My goal, I didn't have a goal. And I kind of, okay, now I have a goal, is to correct this knee, right? So that's a goal. And then I've been lifting fine and training fine. But if you don't have a goal, you don't say, look, okay, I'm going to do this, but what does it take to get there? I've got to do my homework, got to get sleep, and that's the toughest thing with kids these days, get sleep. I got to eat properly, right? Yeah, you can, I know I've heard of people saying, oh, our kids never had lives and stuff like that. You ask them yourselves. They did stuff. They did what they needed to do, but it's like, we'd say like, okay, what's the downside? Could something happen that you could get in trouble? And B, is it really worth doing, right? And it's not a matter we say we restrict them, we say, no, you can't do this. Some stuff they did is like, see, right? And they realize, okay, you got to give them the freedom to feel it, to feel the consequences, right? But you got to kind of, and it's mutual, sit down and map out this goal. If this is what you want to do, right, then I, as a parent, will support you and we'll map out, and we mapped out, this is what we got to do to get there. As a coach, if this is where you want to go, right, then this is what you have to do, right? Line them out, tell them, this is what you got to do, this is what I see, got to be corrected, change, whatever. Can you do it? Can you stick by that? And if they say yes, all right, then I'll hold them accountable. If they say, yeah, well, nah. Or if the same way I can be fired, right? The same way I can fire them and say, look, this is not working out. You're not doing what you need to do. And, I think we need to part ways because we don't seem to work well together, kind of thing.
Right. Have you done that to a kid, or is it more adult clients, or?
I've had a few, yeah. Say like, yeah, I can't help, or maybe I go to the parents and say, yeah, I don't think I can help first. Because if it's, especially to a younger individual, I tell them, just come out, let them see how they interact, or see how you interact with me, and then you talk to them later on and say, okay, is this somebody you can train with, or you think, there's some rapport, and let them decide. But I'm not gonna force anybody to say, no, you have to train with me, or it's like, no, I'm not like that.
It's not gonna hurt your feelings if they don't want to train with you.
No, too old for that.
Right. Is it different for you training, let's say like a teenage boy compared to a teenage girl? Are there things that you have to be more focused with, as in, like, could there be more distractions for the boy or the girl in their outside sport life that you might have to be more careful of to keep them on track, to keep them focused?
Yeah, I mean, this day and age right now with social media and stuff is like, and the phones, because I used to hate phones, but now we use apps that are on the phone, so it's like, all right, better to join the crew, but have something on it that you need to do that'll be productive and help me, than just being on the phone and texting and tweeting and all that. Yeah, there's a difference between boys and girls, definitely, because the different characteristics of their bodies and the maturity. Girls usually mature faster than boys. Boys' brains don't develop, so the studies say, until 25, so they're pretty stupid. They do stupid things. And we go into men and we do stupid things, right? Yeah. But, even just, the hip angle and, where their hip, the top of their hip and their knees and, having the hips and the width, a lot of valgus motion, so the knees knocking together for where women are concerned. So you got to look at the jumping skills, and the majority of the time the upper body isn't as strong as their lower body, and it's not because it can't be or wasn't, but they don't necessarily train the upper body. Like pull-ups for a girl is hard at a point, but when they start training and they realize, okay, let's try and match the top half with the bottom half, then it works. Because one of the biggest arguments I had with track coaches earlier on in their careers was because they ran, their legs were massive and their upper bodies were slight compared to the legs.
Just not proportionate.
Yeah, and it ended up, because there's so much torque generated and power generated by the legs and the glutes and everything else, they ended up fracturing L4, L5 just because of the torque. And I'm like, so there's again, going back to the balance thing, you got to make sure that the individual is balanced or suited for that job they want to carry out. So you just got to be aware of that, and of course, the cycle of it's something you hate to ask, and usually you ask or you ask the parent, kind of like, just let me know, because there's studies showing pick your times, they could be more susceptible to injury, so you got to be careful, right?
I see.
And then kind of like back off and then
you don't go as heavy or as intense
or
for
whatever,
that
or plyo or something. You just be careful, and watch carefully.
But any like long relationships, the coach and that girl would have that relationship to just let me know, and we'll back off for that week, and then we'll add it back on once everything's over with.
Yeah, because I usually ask, how you feel, what's up, anything, what did you do the other day, what are you doing tomorrow, and especially when they're school time, because they could have just had practice and they come to you, and it's like, all right, let me just back off of the plans I had. So I always ask questions, and some may think you're a baby. It's like, no, I'm asking because sometimes athletes won't tell you.
Right.
And then you look at them, you're doing a movement screen. It's like, what's wrong? What happened?
Right.
And then they'll tell you.
Right.
So, it's just a case of, because football can tend to be suck it up. I don't care what's hurting. Team sport, get through the game or get through practice. But when they come to me, I'm in football mode. I'm in returning you in the same condition you came, and making sure I don't hurt you any further, right? Because I'll send you home if there's an issue. It's like, just go home and rest. Like, that's the time, I get mad then. I say, like, why didn't you call me and tell me, hey, this is what's going on, or I just ran, cross country, and like, no, don't waste your time and don't waste my time in that sense. We want to keep you healthy.
Right. So you think it's a really overlooked thing on the fatigue side, on the just they're not mentally there to perform. It might just be an off day. You might just have to back off.
It only hurts an individual when, there's some individuals that are really cerebral in their performance, right? And if they have a down day, they're just like, man, they're just thinking that you could see it. They're thinking so hard. It's like, don't worry about it, right? Overall, the trend is still going the way you want to go. You're going to have those. You don't go like that.
Right.
Nobody does, right? You do have, and then we got to look at, okay, is it a long-term thing or is it just a blip?
Just a one day.
Right?
So on those days, sometimes it may just be better off not doing anything. There's nothing you can do to fix it on that day. It might just be an off day. Let's just see what happens the next time you guys meet.
It's a possibility, right? I mean, the longer you train with somebody too, the more you understand how they roll, and how they operate, and what things that they do in their jobs or their professions, anything else. So you kind of get an idea, right? And you can see it, right? And say like, okay, I just stay and rest, just do a flush, just do something else, just do nothing,
right?
Just eat and sleep, right? A lot of times, sleep is is huge. You get
Very
good sleep.
overlooked.
Oh, you get a good, a good 8 hours. And from school, they're talking like, 9 to 10. Like no kid's getting that, right? When you get older, it's like
Right.
seven at least. But you need a good chunk of sleep hours because that's where you grow. That's where the growth hormones released. That's where you repair. So if you don't give your body time to repair, it's just breaking down over and over and over again, and then something's gonna happen.
Right.
Right.
That's cool. What is there a you have so many moments with various athletes, whether it's kids, adults, kids to adults, and that relationship. Like, is there like one moment or accomplishment that one of your client has had that made you go, wow, like that's like it's like a really cool to see how everything kind of culminates together after all these years of hard work. Is there like one moment or maybe one or two moments that you really go, wow, like that's amazing that it's really come together after all these years?
Wow, there's a million of them because
Yeah.
it takes so much time, right? Like, yeah, wow. I mean, seeing how the kids got through and all that time, seeing how Shaq got through all that time because they put the time and the effort into it, and they just, no matter what adversity and anything else they ran into, they just kept chipping away like one day at a time. One of the mentors, Chris Chapman, he was doing his master's and he allowed me to coach one of his athletes, and pretty high level athlete, and she came off a pregnancy, and it was kind of like getting her back into competition mode, and it was interesting because decorated, pretty decorated, and really the association was kind of like, yeah, you're probably washed up. We're not even gonna fund you or anything like that. I'm thinking like, what, because that's what sport is. Sport, and I try to tell athletes who want to go that far, it's like, okay, you gotta have to plan B. One day it's gonna end. Hopefully it's not a catastrophic injury. Hopefully it's on your terms. You can say, all right, I'm done, as opposed to being cut and never, being brought back. But you've got to prepare for that. And so I was like, I kept telling her all the time, like, do you know who you are? Like, no, you basically, brought this sport to the forefront and all that.
Right.
So
that's how decorated she was in her respective sport.
And she, so we progressed back, and she just got stronger, and everything was like, man, this is great. And I think at her championships, I think she was warming up. She got hurt in her championships. I'm like, oh. So that was that. And she ended up retiring. And then another girl we're talking about, gymnast and it went down to UCLA, and she, like, just an incredible athlete. And I was telling you, she was about 105 pounds, and she run down the track and sound like what Justin and Ian would sound like,
right,
who were 50 pounds heavier in a sense. But her and her tenacity, because she started gymnastics at 5, her mom was saying, and she made it scholarship. She had a scholarship at 13.
Lined up to
right?
UCLA.
UCLA,
wow.
13. And she, 2012, everything was looking good. She was like, okay, this is it. She's going to be fine. And I got a call from her mom saying she hurt her knee at the championships. So she technically wasn't going to be going to London, but
she would have. She most likely would have.
Yeah. She was leading, all up to that point. But she ended up, they allowed her to come as like an ambassador, like an ambassador coach kind of thing, and it was good. But she's been through a lot. But gone to UCLA, doing her thing, got her degrees, and her last competition, I think, was last year. She got 2 10s in one of her disciplines, in 2 disciplines, and went out with a bang. So it's just seeing. I think later on when you see, I think the most endearing term is somebody call you coach, right? Because you see them as kids depending on, and then you see them as adults later on, and they've got kids and stuff like that. You're like, wow, and they still call you coach. But a lot of times, sometimes you think somebody's not listening to what you're saying. And I've had guys come up to me and said, yeah, man, you used to say such and such. I'm like, what? You remember that? I said, yeah, you said that, and I'm like, so you got to be careful what you say to people, right?
That's
because
funny.
You can damage someone with what you say with your tongue, or you can uplift them and give them some good good things to think about that they'll like later on use in their life, right?
Right.
So,
Is there one client that you wish didn't end the way it ended, or that you wish you could have helped them a little bit more?
yeah, a lot of those too.
Yeah, a lot of
Yeah, because like I said, I take the losses and things to heart, or injuries. I take to heart. It's like, man, what did I do? What could I have done better? One that stands out. Yeah, that's a tough one. Not offhand. Yeah, not offhand.
just a lot of them
Yeah,
over
yeah.
over
You
the
get
years,
more
eh?
setbacks than like massive triumphs in a sense, right?
Right, of course.
But just happy to be a part of it, right? Because sometimes you're only on a piece of their life, but it helped them later on,
Right.
which is fine by me.
Right, well, what was the biggest lesson you've learned over your career as a SNC coach?
You got to develop your own philosophy, but to a certain extent, you still got to look at the tried and true stuff,
Right.
and build your own menu of exercises and things like that, and develop your own protocol to say, okay, this is what I'm going to follow, because if I know, it's like a roadmap, right? It tells you where you're going to go, where you want to get to, taking a particular route. But if you want to step off and go see the sightseeing at this little town next door, you can go off and see that town, but then you know how to get back on that route. So you still need a plan to kind of guide you, right? But be flexible enough to, all right, let's change a bit, based on what's going on and how the client's feeling themselves,
Well, that's cool. That's cool. Is there anything that you would offer as a suggestion to people watching who may want to be an SNC coach? Like, what would you say to them to help them, at least kick in the right direction?
Yeah, I would. You probably want to follow. If you're in SNC or going into that area, you probably following, or there's SNC coaches out there that you like their style and stuff. You start following guys, and usually they write some good stuff or have some great books, and that way you start to develop your knowledge. But I mean, you can read all you want, and you got to apply it. Like, you have to take what you've read and actually put it into use, whether it's yourself or somebody else. But if you know your craft and be good at that particular craft, I think you'll start to develop a decent following in that sense. And don't be afraid of change. It's like, I'm saying that to myself too, because sometimes you got, all right, you know what, that may have been that part of my life. Now maybe things are changing a bit, so I've got to now retool and re-gear up for the next chapter, in a sense, of my life. And but don't be afraid to do that. It's tough because you can get set in a way and you don't want to change. But I think if you explore opportunities, explore avenues, and then talk to people. That's the biggest thing. Like, I come from back in the day, relationships, right? We all had relationships. We fed off each other and stuff like that. If you do that, it's like even sitting here with you, man. I'm old, right? You should be sitting here with an old guy.
No.
But no,
I'm learning so much just from hearing all of this.
But part of you, like, dealing with you, is like, I learn your generation, and I learn things like, okay, and things start to make more sense now when I'm dealing with other people. So you can always learn from whatever generation, a little kid, a little toddler, how they're crawling is like, oh, cool, look at that, how they're squatting, to an older gentleman who's now doing masters, and he's 85 and he can out sprint my butt. Like, I can learn, right? So never think you're beyond learning. And a lot of strength coaches and coaches will say that the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. Because I keep going to seminars and keep going to courses and studies and reading books, and it's like, if out of any book, any seminar, any whatever, I get one thing, then I'm good. If I get nothing, then that's sad. But I've never run into anything where I've paid big money or paid little money. It's like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense, right? So just keep the notebook handy, put all your notes together, and you'll come out with that philosophy, and that's going to be your style, right? But it's a crowded field in a sense with just everybody's a trainer, everybody's an Instagram trainer and all that. But I think if you do good quality work, it will show, and people will start looking for you, start seeking you out.
Right,
So-
right. That's awesome. Thanks, Ian. Thanks for
All right,
sharing.
man.
So that's that. That's Ian Warner, Senior, my strength coach, sharing some of his experiences and ideas for hopefully just to help anybody. So hope that helps. Any questions, if leave in the comments below. We'll catch you guys next time. Thanks, guys.